Hi, this is Dr. Esa and welcome back to the Greek class. And today we're going to look at the demonstrative pronoun and also the vocative case and perhaps a couple other things. So let's get on with it. Demonstrative pronouns are very easy. Basically, it's this, these, that, those. So a demonstrative pronoun represents a thing or things. So the ones that are near in distance, this or these, and far in this distance, obviously time also, that or those. So here you can see examples. This tastes good, and these are bad times. That and those were the days. So it's a really straightforward idea of demonstrative pronoun that represents a thing or things either near or far away in singular or in plural. So demonstrative pronouns can function either as pronouns or adjectives. As pronouns, that is mine, or as adjectives, that car is mine. So you can see in the second example that functions as something that describes the car, that car, not a indefinite car or some abstract car, but that specific car. So it gives it a specific quality. So in Greek, we have two important demonstrative pronouns. One that reflects the near at hand pronoun, which in Greek is houtos, and ekeinos, which relates to something that is further removed. Both come in plural and singular and masculine, feminine, and neuter forms, and obviously in all the different cases. So the first demonstrative pronoun is houtos, and you can again see singular form and in different this kind of orangey color, the plural forms. And if you again learned well the case endings in masculine, feminine, and neuter, nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative, this really should be quite an easy task. So houtos is this in masculine nominative, and haute in feminine, and tuto in neuter. So this. Now you notice here when we look at the genitive form, it does have a slight change here in the beginning as well. So genitive form of houtos is tutu, dative is tuto, and accusative is tuton. So notice here that you have the regular masculine nominative ending and regular masculine genitive ending, tutu, and dative ending and accusative ending, almost as if all of these forms were just the article with something in front of it. And the feminine form is very similar. The feminine nominative singular starts with haute, and then again the genitive switches to having the tau in front of it, because tautes, taute, tauten, and you can see again corresponds almost with identical forms as in the feminine articles. And same applies to the neuter form, with the exception that the neuter form already has the tau in front of it. So tuto, tutu, tuto, tuto. So those are the singular forms. Now the plural forms follow exactly the same pattern. And again, if you have learned the plural case endings well, then you have no problems identifying them. So plural, these is in Greek houtoi, and then we have the tau here again. So plural form of genitive tuton, dative tutois, accusative tutus. Feminine form hautai, tuton, tautais, tautas. And now you can see that the alpha is the dominant feature here in this beginning of the word and also in the ending in dative and accusative plural. And neuter plural tauta, tuuton, tuutois, and tauta. Now the next we have the other demonstrative pronoun ekeinos, which means that in singular, and those in plural. So we have the singular ones here and the plural ones here as in the previous slides. And the pattern follows the same first and second declension endings. So ekeinos, ekeinou, ekeino, ekeinon in masculine singular, feminine ekeine, ekeines, ekeine, ekeinen. So here we don't really have even the switch from between nominative and genitive as we had in the previous one, the hutos. Now ekeinos in neuter is ekeino, genitive ekeinou, ekeino, and ekeino. And you can explore how the similar pattern follows here in the plural as well. So let's look at the function of hutos and ekeinos as pronouns first. So here you can see the Greek sentence, hutos blepe ton oikon. We have this sees the house. Now you can see that hutos is by itself, so it is implied that it is this man or this person who sees the house. And again, obviously ton oikon in accusative case singular, so we can see ton oikon is the object of the verb. Next one, ekeine ginoskei ton apostolon, and we can see recognize the accusative form of apostolos as ton apostolon, the verb ginoske to know, and we have ekeine in feminine singular demonstrative pronoun, so that knows the apostle. And since this word ekeine is in feminine, we can surmise that it's that woman or that person, female person, that knows the apostle. So tuto, since it's neuter, often implies that it is this thing. Haute, since it's feminine, this woman. Notice that these are forms of hutos, but this is neuter and this is feminine. And finally, ekeino, that thing. Now this is from the ekeinos, but it is the neuter singular nominative. So since it's neuter, it implies that it's that thing. So let's look at demonstrative pronouns as adjectives. So noun, when it has the article, it is predicate position, but here we have the opposite arrangement from the adjectives that we learned earlier. So here's an example, hutos ho anthropos, or the word order can be reversed, ho anthropos, hutos. And so we have the demonstrative adjectival pronoun, ho anthropo, hutos ho anthropos, this person or this man. And another example, blepo ekeinen ten ecclesian, and then baino ek tutu tu topu. Let's look at the first one, blepo, I see, ekeinos in feminine accusative singular, as is the ten ecclesian as well. So I see that church, and obviously we cannot in this situation translate, we cannot say I see that the church. In English we cannot say that way. And the next example, baino, I go out, and preposition ek, out of. Then we have tutu, this, obviously in genitive case because it is followed by the preposition ek. I go out of this topu, the place. I am going out, or I go out of this place. Now let's take a look at one familiar scripture. Everybody knows Ephesians chapter 2 verse 8. Te kariti este se sosmenoi diapisteos, kai tuto uk ex humon theu to doron. So certainly there's a lot of vocabulary that you don't recognize, which is fine. So you have gar, which is for, so te kariti, by grace. Este se sosmenoi, you are saved, or you have been saved. Dia, through faith. And this uk ex humon is not from you. Theu todoron, of God, the gift. It is God's gift. So the question here that we want to look at is, what is the antecedent of the demonstrative pronoun tuto? In other words, when it says that and this is not of yourself, what it is referring back to, what is this referring to? Is it referring back to grace, chariti, which is in feminine, or is it referring back to pisteos, which would be sort of a closer in proximity, but pisteos is also feminine. Now, if tuto was referring to either grace or faith, grammatically it would have to take the feminine form, because it would be alluding back to either chariti, hekaris, or hepistis, both of which are feminine forms. So what it is referring to then, as it is in neuter format. So what is this that Paul is talking about that is not from yourself? Is it that you don't have grace in yourself, or you don't have faith in yourself? Which one is it? Well, it is the whole phrase that it's referring to. The grace by faith salvation is in view here. So the whole phrase kai tuto is a sort of adverbial construction, and especially this is not from you. And now, since we have clear understanding of the grammar, we could ask ourselves, well, what is the theological implication? Well, it seems to be that salvation from the beginning, including the grace and the salvation and the faith, is not of yourself, but it is God's gift. So let's look at briefly one Greek idiom at this point when we have neuter plural subject. When we have a plural subject that is in neuter gender, we often see that in the New Testament using a singular verb, even though grammatically we would expect obviously a plural verb. So here's an example from Luke chapter 10 verse 20. Hoti ta pneumata humin hypotasesthai. So here we can see that, well, we can translate it as that the spirits are subjected to you. And you notice here that the spirits here is plural neuter, but then we have the hypotasesthai, which is singular third person, which begs the question, why is it in singular form when the noun here is in plural? And the only explanation for that it is Greek idiom, and therefore it doesn't follow the regular grammatical pattern. Now, that is not always the case, but very often that is the case. So next we can take a look at the vocative, which is the fifth case. Remember, we have so far learned the nominative case, the genitive, dative, and accusative case, and hopefully they are well ingrained into your mind and memory by now. So what is the vocative case? It's actually quite rare, but it does occur from time to time. And it is known as the direct address. So in other words, when a noun is being directly addressed, for example, teacher, and then you'd continue the sentence. For example, when the rich young man came to Jesus and told him, teacher, what should I do to inherit the eternal life? And other examples abound. So how do we actually recognize the vocative case? In some cases, it's identical to the nominative, and in some cases, it has its own form. So let's read one example from Matthew 7:21. Upas ho legon moi kyrie eis eleusetai eisten basileian ton uranon. Now we don't have to worry about every detail of this sentence, but look at the translation. Upas, not everyone. Legon, who says, moi to me, kyrie, kyrie. So if you remember what is the nominative singular of kyrie, then you know what the difference here is. So kyrios is the nominative singular. So remember the nominative singular ending, masculine. And now you can see that kyrie is slightly different and does not correspond to any of the other case endings. Similarly, if we have the word didaskalos, teacher, the vocative form would be didaskale. But like I said before, not every noun has this vocative case ending or doesn't always follow that same pattern. If we use the plural direct address vocative, most of the time it is identical to the nominative plural. So here we have an example. Andres Galilaioi ti hestekate blepontes eis ton uranon, from Acts 1:11. So men of Galilee, why do you stand here looking into the sky? So why do you stand looking eiston into the sky or the heaven? So now notice here the direct address Andres is exactly alike as we would find from the aner masculine singular, and then we switch it to nominative plural, would become Andres, and vocative is exactly identical. And as I indicated, very often also the singular words are identical both in vocative and in nominative case. But let's read Luke 12:19. Kai ero te psychemu, psyche ekheis polla agatha keimena eis ete polla. So this is from the parable of the rich fool, and I will say to soul of mine, to my soul, soul, you have many good things laid onto years many. So I'll say to myself, soul, you have plenty of good things laid up for many years. So some words have identical vocative and nominative, especially first declension singular, but there are some others as well. Some other words have bare minimum changes or very little changes as they are placed into vocative case. So this is from the Lord's Prayer. Pater hemon ho entois uranois hagias theto to onoma su. Father of ours, or our Father, who in the heavens, who art in heaven, hagias theto, may it be sanctified, to onoma, the name of yours. May your name be sanctified or hallowed. So now you can see a third declension word often have a bare stem and has some minor changes. So in this situation, pater would become pater. So only change here is the eta changes into epsilon. And these kind of subtle changes are best understood and memorized when you know the basic lexical form of the word and you notice any differences or changes which do not correspond to regular case endings. You could conclude that it must be vocative, especially by looking at the context as well. So one final thing to look at today. So we have comparative and superlative adjectives. So we have positive, which is the basic form, which does not compare, which would be the basic dictionary form of large or big, which would be megas. Then if we want to look at the comparative form or the greater degree that is greater, so we go from large to larger. So in Greek, we go from megas to meizon. And finally, we have the superlative, which is the greatest degree. So we go from large to larger to the largest. And in Greek, from megas to meizon to megistos. Now this superlative form is extremely rare to the point that you'd only find it very, very seldom in the New Testament. The upshot of this is that the meizon in Greek is used both as comparative and superlative, which makes it a little bit more difficult, but then you'd have to determine from the context whether meizon is really meant to take on a comparative or superlative meaning. So again, a context is the key to identification and proper translation. So workbook exercises you can do on page 49, warm up and parsing, and then homework, look up page 51 from the workbook, translation exercises 8 to 10, and then quiz next week on chapters 12 and 13. So I hope you enjoy it and have a great day.